I'm Veenu Keller. It's time to redefine parenting and give your kids a childhood they won't have to heal from. I work with kids, right? Like on a daily basis, I'm coaching teenage kids and I'm coaching these parents and I'm telling them like you got to put boundaries around these video games. And I said, when you want to spend time with your kids, do what they want. If they like the video games, get in the video games so you can understand their model of the world, because we keep trying to pull our kids in our model of the world the way it was. We're not living in the way it was. We're living in a new dimension of this world, this country, everything we're dealing with. And so I'm even curious, like, what are some of the findings that you found? Like, share with us. So, because I have twins too that are becoming 10 next month, and they're just getting into a little of the roadblocks and stuff. Thank God that's it yet. And my older son's like, Mom, let him get on PS5, let him like get on the internet and I can play this game with him. And I'm like, no, Connor, he's not. And he's like, come on, Mom, you're too strict. You're too strict, Mom. I said, he's only at 9. He's only 9. He doesn't need to get on the internet. You want to play with him? Come over here and play with them, but I'm not letting him get on. And then I have like pressure from like other parents, like, oh, Veenu, it's not a big deal if he's playing with his brother. Like, help me to back up my story why I'm saying no.
You know what was interesting? One is there is no boundaries. It's limitless. And so there are adults that play for money. And my son has started playing for winning awards and monies, but he was playing with people all over the world. And I think that the Discord and the Twitch and all of those worlds, they're not concerned about your children. They're concerned about it's a money making, membership driven app or platform. And so one of the things that we were kind of going through the computer, and it was like, it would be like, if I get 10 likes, I'm gonna kill myself. If it was like suicide was like became normal. It was like a norm. It was like, think about dying in a game. You're just dying. It's not really a big deal. So there's a disconnect of reality versus real life. I promise you, if my son really understood the impact and how this would impact our family, that wasn't his heart. That wasn't, but somewhere he became numbed to what was real versus what wasn't real. And I'm not saying that he what was delusional, but I on many levels, I think that the pressures and the different dynamics, I'm talking about over time. I'm talking about progressively, something made him very comfortable in the decision to say, you know what, I don't have to do this anymore. And so I think that it's not to say that video games are bad, but I feel like as a parent, one of our jobs is to help provide structure and boundaries and to see something a little bit differently than what they see. The problem is we've been inundated with so many things I'm guilty. In the back seat, they're screaming. I hand them a phone. Please be quiet. What the behaviors we as adults, I'm not talking about kids. I'm talking about us.
Yes.
We sacrifice for convenience. And what are we sacrificing? And that's the question you have to ask yourself. You know what? I get 4 hours of quiet time because I know that child is on a video game at least 4 hours. So I can know they're safe. But are they safe because they're in someone else's world? So if we're going to be a part of their lives, and God is trusting us with these children and these to bring them up and to help nurture them and give them, are we really unplugging ourselves for convenience sake to say, well, I'll just hand them a device of something that really we're not a part of. And I guess that it's not a soapbox for me, because I really believe every child is different. I believe that the point I want to make is parent engagement, not every parent in America go rip the video games out of your child's life. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is we have to be a part of their worlds. And sometimes that causes us to have to be inconvenienced, and it's worth it because somewhere along the line we unplug too. And I had 6 kids and you have 6 kids. So you know about being outnumbered, and it's just like, okay, let me get this one, take care of this one, this one. And I have to say, I was too busy. And I'm going to admit it. I was just too busy.
And, that's where, I did a whole talk on presence, and presence starts with us, and then it models to our kids. And you hit on so many good points. I'm Veenu Keller. It's time to redefine parenting and give your kids a childhood they won't have to heal from. I wish I had more information about the metaverse, but I really am trying to not get into it because I don't want that to succumb my life. I don't want this to take over. I want us to bring awareness to, like you said, how do we unplug? How do we, the new word in our question in our life should be, how could I be inconvenienced today to spend more time with my kid?
Yeah.
How can I be more inconvenienced today
really good.
To spend more time with my kid, to hear what's bothering them, what's been great? I tell parents all the time, and I'm guilty of this. Like when I raised my two boys as a single mom for like 8 or 9 years, I was working 3 jobs to put food on the table. I lived paycheck to paycheck. And I was still trying to figure out, who am I? Do I want to even live anymore? Because in 2016 was my end date. Like that was the day I was going to go after my son graduated high school. He was the last one I had at the time. And because in my warped thinking, it was, well, I've raised them. I've done my job. They're not going to go live with my ex-husband, who I didn't think was a great influence. So they'll be okay. Little did I know now that they're 28 and 23 and that my oldest one's married and has a kid, they need me now more than they needed me then, and I did not realize that because in my mind, I thought everybody would be better off without me. We create this story that we get involved in, and we can't decipher if that's really true or is that story that I'm making up for myself true.
And that's interesting. You said that you had a cutoff date or a time. He had a cutoff. He said 11 o'clock is my time, my cutoff. He used that word. He said my 11 o'clock, and he did it at exactly 11 o'clock, which leads me to believe, and this was a communication he was having with an individual. He had told the individual, you could save me. You're the only person that can. And I dare not disclose, that whole thing. But what I'll say to you is that you need to be a part of your kids' friends.
Yes.
Because at some point that night, if one of his friends has called me and said, hey, Miss Anthony, hey, I got this weird text from John and I don't know, I'm worried about him. He texts like 20 people. Out of 20 people and talking to people, some of those people for 40 and 45 minutes, not one of them called us. And I say that to say is that that's a disconnect too for me, is that I began to, because he was a boy and of course, girls, you're worried about their boyfriend, right? You're worried about the girls are kind of more open to their social life, but boys kind of have a tendency, you just trust them, be at home at this time, and he was very responsible. So for me, I kind of had disconnected from who was in his world. And I didn't bring them in like I did with my daughter. Like, who's your friend? Where are you going? What time?
Nice.
I had to know who everybody was. And so I share that to say is that many times, and as I look at it, and you could speak to the experience of what he might have been thinking or what he could have been thinking. But one of the things I do know is that he had made up his mind. And it was probably, I would say there was nothing that I could have done. Me and his father was in the next room. And so it wasn't like he didn't know we loved him or we couldn't help him, but it was something within him that felt very strongly. This was a decision he had to make. And I don't in any way want to normalize suicide, but what I do want to normalize is parents of my own inability to respond faster. Some of the words that he would say is, I don't like people. Some of the things that he would say in his isolation, I should have moved. I had counseling appointments, set up. I didn't move fast enough. And I would tell parents to even if you don't think, even if your child says, oh, I'm fine, I would still, we have this thing called intuition that is inside of us. Mm-hmm. We can feel things, move on it. And even if you're overreactive, I would rather you overreact than not save their life.